I'm shorter. Kuyanamik, Unuktamani Unasi, Kuyanamidu, Shari. My name is Aaju. I'm from Iqaluit in Nunavut. I was actually born in Greenland, but I moved to the Canadian Arctic in 1981. First of all, I would like to thank the Algonquin Nation for allowing us to be here and welcoming us to this place. I love Ottawa. And I wish to thank Walrus. And again, I wish to thank the National Museum of Nature. I was just here a few days ago with Adventure Canada, who I work with. This evening I wish to speak about climate change and how it affects food security for Inuit in the Canadian Arctic. Climate is changing since I started sailing in the Canadian Arctic. Hi, Teresa. That's one of the passengers on the cruise ships. And since I started sailing, I have seen the ice retreating 2 meters, up to 10 meters. You can actually see this. And before I came down, I wanted to have this verified by the hunters. So I interviewed some hunters just to confirm that the climate is changing. And I wanted to know, even though I live in the community, from the hunters' perspective, how it is affecting their ability to feed the community. Our knowledge is passed down by tradition, and much of our knowledge is passed down through the songs. And the song that you just heard is an ancient Inuit song that talks about a changing climate. It talks about how you have to be aware of your surroundings. If you're easily frozen, then you dress properly. If the route that you're taking is not possible because of whatever, then you take another route. Inuit are the longest remaining culture, the hunting culture, and we are still adapting. And wouldn't you know, we've seen pictures of camels in the Canadian Arctic. We've seen traces of how the Arctic was warmer before. So the changing of the Arctic is not new. I'm just timing myself here. Now, the question is, because in the Canadian Arctic, according to our hunters and the people that live there, the ice is forming later and it's breaking up sooner. The routes that the hunters are taking are breaking up, so they have to go longer. They have to go take different routes. In the Canadian Arctic, it is vital that our hunters have the ability to feed the communities. Why is this? We have the highest unemployment rate. We have the highest food prices. And the hunters do not charge to feed the community. When you have a state in the Canadian Arctic that we do have the least security of food, and this is already proven, studies have been done, not that I needed to be told that in some communities, some families have empty refrigerators. You open the refrigerator, it is empty. I do not need studies to tell me that we are hungry. Somebody's wrong. Can I answer that? Just kidding. This is important for our hunters, that they are able to go out and catch the seal, the caribou, and the fish because they share it with the community. When you have no food in your home and a hunter that day goes on the radio and he says, anybody wants fresh seal, anybody wants fresh caribou, come and get some. And the suggestion by our hunters, they see the changing of the climate. The suggestion by our hunters is also because it affects the sovereignty of the Canadian Arctic. We now have ships that will be sailing through our territory. The suggestion from our people is, how can we be more involved in this grand scale of climate change? We cannot change it, it is happening. But through history, we've been able to adapt. How can we help our communities and our hunters to adapt to this changing environment? The suggestion that I agreed with is, well, what about the hunters that are losing their fishing equipment, that are losing their hunting equipment, the hunters that are falling through ice because the ice is so thin that even the routes that they're normally taking, they fall into the ice. And some of them will perish. We should support them with their equipment. We should make it easier as a society for the hunters to provide for the community. I'm used to eating caribou and seal and fish. Store-bought food, I cannot eat it raw. It's not by chance that we are called Eskimo. We eat raw meats, and we love eating the raw meat, especially the seal, because in the environment that we are in, it's very cold, and you cannot dress enough to stay warm. You actually have to heat yourself from the inside out. The food that is there helps us to survive and to stay warm, and the skins that we have, like the seal skin, helps us to survive in that environment. I was thinking, so how do I talk about a changing climate in a very short time? It is like a race. Our culture is changing as well. We are in a new environment, but our environment is changing as well. So it's like we are being bombarded in two fronts, changing culture and then changing climate. But my best solution and my best suggestion to you is that Inuit should take full active participation in what is happening in the Canadian Arctic with the changing climate. And we have to help our communities feed themselves. That was 7 minutes. Thank you so much for your attention.